Hello, I'm Dr. Mary Meehan. As a Catholic university, Seton Hall University is committed to supporting educational achievement within our community. That's why we're proud to support the important educational programming produced by the CAUCUS Educational Corporation.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by New Jersey Resources, Seton Hall University, where leaders learn, TD Bank, Hackensack Meridian Health, Verizon, the Turl Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, and by NJM Insurance Group.
Welcome, folks. I'm Steve Adubato. We're here at the Northward Center in Newark, New Jersey. We've just completed a very compelling, powerful, and frankly, very candid conversation about the future of urban education. And a young lady you're about to see on camera, Michele Adubato, the Chief Executive Officer of the Northward Center, was not just a big part of that forum of 9 experts in urban education, but invited us here to the center, where our dad started this organization 45 years ago. An urban educator.
Yes.
Biggest takeaway for you from that discussion is?
You know, I came into this knowing that there was a long road ahead. After the conversation that we had, although we continue to understand that Newark is nowhere near it needs to be in terms of education for everybody, that there's real hope. It's tangible.
By the way, as we're doing this program, Newark is transitioning from state control, some say a takeover over the last 20 plus years, to local control. That matters because?
It matters because, like every other town, Newark should have a right, Newark parents and families should have a right to be a part of their educational system. It happens all across America. Why wouldn't it happen here?
But I said in the forum that you're a former principal, but you also made it clear, once a principal, always a principal. But to those watching right now outside of urban areas, outside of Newark or Jersey City, Camden, Patterson, Plainfield, et cetera, New Brunswick, what would you say to those folks about who these young people are in the city of Newark and in urban schools across the state and nation?
I'd say that these kids are eager, willing, and want to learn if they're given the right structure, the right format, the right school, the right culture of excellence. All of them will perform. They just don't have, not every student has that chance right now.
Why do you think so many have so low expectations of children in schools in our cities?
I don't know if everyone has low expectations.
I didn't say everyone, but there are a significant number of people watching right now and across this nation who don't expect much. You do.
Because I know them. I know these kids. I've been in Newark Public Schools, like I said, for over 25 years. I'm in the community all the time as the CEO of the Northward Center. And these kids, the preschools, over 700 preschoolers, ABBA preschoolers here, vibrant at the Northward Center.
What do you see in them?
I see hope. I see they're ready to go. They're ready to enter first grade. They're reading above grade level, their comprehension. And I also see energy. The pause that I have, because I'm not going to sit here and say that everything's rosy, because it absolutely isn't. The pause that I have is when they enter into first grade reading above average, will that continue? You know,
why does it give you pause?
Because not all schools are equal, unfortunately. And so when our kids do go into their respective schools, that, will there be, the opportunity to continue to grow? And in Newark, there are what we call pockets of excellence. We like to say pockets of excellence.
What do you think? It's a euphemism for what?
It's a euphemism for not all schools are doing well. And
is it camouflaging some of the problems?
Absolutely. Because I don't accept pockets of excellence. I accept that I expect, and everyone in that room also, we expect that every child should be able to get a
You're talking
quality
about a forum.
education. Absolutely.
Yeah,
the
by the way,
forum.
what is the role of an organization like the North Ward Center, been around for over 40 years, social service organization, if you will, in the future of public school children in the city of Newark? Why is a not-for-profit so committed to this initiative?
This is the part of who we are as a community. We can talk about funding and money. There's never enough money to go around. And of course, Newark as a whole needs more revenue. If the community-based organizations don't take their responsibility correctly and help Newark Public Schools, then we have no business being here in
Define
Newark.
help. Give us a couple of examples.
Help, support, advocate. Newark, I go around to every school in this area. We sponsored Thanksgiving dinners. We have different events here. With Robert Treat Academy, we've worked.
Robert Treat Academy is the charter school that was founded by our dad
Absolutely.
20 years ago, if I'm
Absolutely.
not mistaken.
The first charter school in New Jersey.
By the way, let's talk about that, the discussion of charter schools. Charter schools are public charter schools, but the biggest difference would be from them and the traditional public schools.
I would say the biggest difference is possibly in the diversity of the students. And one of the things, and what I was trying to express in that forum is that we need to stop focusing on the what, like the public charter schools, the traditional public schools, the magnet schools, and we need to focus on what works and why it works. Can that really be working in traditional public schools? That's still out.
What works?
What works is quality education, performance-based evaluations, teachers that are evaluated based on performance, principals that are leaders, instructional leaders of schools, but also managers, and a leader and understand the culture. That's what works.
Is that harder in your mind to achieve in a traditional public school versus a charter school?
I want to say that with charter schools, if charter schools have taught us anything.
Because not all charter schools have succeeded.
Absolutely not.
Some have failed, been put out of business,
Right.
and not done well for those kids.
And some have done selective process in terms of, and I think that happened earlier in the idea of what a charter school was.
I mean, like cherry picking kids?
Absolutely. But now that's really, it's a misnomer, for lack of a better word. Because in Newark right now, we do have universal enrollment.
Explain what that means.
Universal enrollment is basically that everyone has to go through a process of a parent has the right to choose their school. And it may not be their neighborhood school. In fact, most parents don't choose their neighborhood schools. And overwhelmingly, parents are choosing either magnet schools or charter schools or public charter schools. And I am not here in any way to say that traditional Newark public schools are absolutely having more challenges because we become more of the comprehensive schools. And that's really what Newark is, Newark Public Schools. That's what I'm used to. You take everyone where they're at, and you teach where they're at. And we have to look at—
Not easy.
It's not easy, but
Charter
it's
schools by themselves not the answer, are they?
Absolutely not. But charter schools, again, have shown us that now there's close to, I think, 30% of children in Newark attend public charter schools. And many of them are excelling. So again, it's taught us something
It's
along
part
with,
of the solution.
along with our magnet schools. That
Magnet schools are schools that children go to that focus on a particular area of concentration,
Right.
if I'm not mistaken.
And what it's proven is that children can perform better, that do go off to college and can be prepared.
You're
And
optimistic, aren't you?
I am, but I want to take a pause, and I want us to remember how we got here. Excessive spending, teachers and schools that did not live up to children's expectations. We need to live up to the child and the family's expectations.
Real quick before I let you go, local control will also mean Newark will pick its next superintendent.
Absolutely.
That matters because?
It matters because this superintendent is key to the success of the continuing success of what's happening right now in Newark Public Schools. We are succeeding marginally, we're working, but it's going up. And that person has to understand that and has to be part of this culture, this school system, and that person's going to get a lot farther. We don't need to start again. We can't start again.
National search?
I don't think so. I think we've got plenty of talent right here in Newark Public Schools.
Michele Adubato, thank you not just for this interview, for that forum, but for being part of the solution. I can say that with all objectivity. Thank you, Michele.
Thank you.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
Steve Adubato here, talking about the future of urban education. We're based here at the North Ward Center, a community-based organization here in the city. We just finished an extraordinary forum, a very candid forum that the gentleman you're about to see on camera, you've seen him before with us. He is Chris Cerf, the superintendent of the Newark Public Schools, the former head of the State Department of Education, the commissioner. A very candid conversation about not just Newark schools, not just urban schools in New Jersey, but across the country. What was your biggest takeaway?
Well, my biggest takeaway is that we owe a debt to our children, and to pay that debt fully, we have to accept certain basic truths. And one of those truths is that in urban America, we have not succeeded as a country to provide the central goal of public education, which is to give every child, regardless of the circumstances into which she or he is born, an equal opportunity at a full and successful life.
You know, Chris, you and I have had so many conversations about education, both on camera and as neighbors in town as well, in Montclair. We've talked about this, and so I want to put this question to you here, which we talked about there, which is a larger question of who cares? Meaning, I asked the question about suburban parents, and I don't mean they're a monolithic entity, but the amount of state funding that goes to poorer districts is somewhat predicated on the political will of suburban legislators representing suburban taxpayers, parents, voters. Long-winded question, I know. To what degree do you believe others outside the city care about urban education and those kids?
I think the answer is it very much depends. I think that there is a narrative out there that says that we do not owe an obligation equally to all children. We need to keep our local taxes local to support our own schools. And why should
our taxes are already through the roof?
Our taxes are already through the roof. But I have to tell you that I think when people sit down and really understand the question, they come out very differently.
Because?
They come out very differently because it's very difficult to defend a system where the quality of one school depends on the value of the taxable property alone.
Explain that to folks.
Well, here's what I mean. I mean, in the olden days, local property taxes essentially paid the lion's share of the cost of public education.
So you got a lot of real estate in that town that's worth a lot. What does it say about the school district?
They got more money to spend, and it all goes there, and none of it goes to a district that has less. On the other hand, years ago, this country woke up to the idea that it can't be right that a child should go to a dilapidated, rundown school, have a larger class size, have no books, no computers, just because he or she happened to be born in a community with lower taxes. Now, the question that is fairly
I mean, less ability to fund the schools is what you mean. Go ahead.
Less ability to fund the schools. And so what the state now does is it expects every jurisdiction to pay what's called in the statute local fair share. It's a judgment about how much the people of that district can afford to spend. And then it tops it off with a slug of state money so that everybody ends up with roughly the same amount of money. Obviously, children who have greater needs, special education students, children who go to schools with a high concentration of poverty get a little bit more.
What are some of the keys, dare I call them best practices, in any urban school or school district anywhere in the state or nation?
So by far and away, the most important variable within a school, within the four brick walls of a school, are the effectiveness and quality of the teaching force. There's no question about that. Now, obviously, there are things outside the school that are highly relevant as well. But within a school, it's the quality of the teachers. And we do not have a system in this country that puts that value at the absolute top of the heap. For example, we cannot differentiate pay. We cannot pay more for a PhD chemist to come in and teach chemistry than for a teacher for whom there's a far greater supply of teachers. So that's a big fundamental problem. The second is leadership. Never seen a great school without a great leader.
Principal.
A principal, correct. I've certainly seen some schools that are struggling that have a great principal, but I've never seen a truly great school without a great leader. The third, and this is a sort of softer one, Steve, but one that I think is very important, is you absolutely have to operate on the basis of high expectations for kids.
Instead of saying, sorry for interrupting, Chris, you know what do you expect? They're kids in urban areas, they come from a tough community where crime is rampant, drugs are there, there may or may not be two parents in the household. Come on, what do you expect? By the way, clearly I'm not saying that I think that, but some do. What do you expect? You expect what?
I'm so glad you said that. I know it's not something from your heart, it's something you're attributing to others, but that sentiment, I believe, is very, very prevalent in public education.
It's pervasive.
It is. It is. And unless you have a school community and a school culture that accurately perceives that children, regardless of their poverty level, for example, or their home circumstances, for example, can and do every day soar if we give them an opportunity, then that's not going to happen for those kids. If you don't expect that they will be great, they won't be great.
To the level of expectation?
Correct.
You believe that?
I absolutely do believe that. Now, look, we're not all born equal. I can tell you, for example, I don't have any musical ability whatsoever, and other people have great musical ability. Some people are born with profound intelligence and some people with less so. So I'm not saying that everybody is born equal.
What should we realistically, legitimately, Chris, expect for most students in urban schools across this nation?
Every child should go to school from pre-K or at least kindergarten through 12th grade, should graduate with a diploma, and that diploma should mean something. It should demonstrate that that child is ready for either college-level work or for access to a profession that provides the kind of economic opportunity that everybody in this country deserves.
Chris, in the limited time we have left, you are leaving as the Superintendent of the Newark Public Schools. In the middle of 2018, this program will be seen in 18. The state has controlled the Newark Public Schools for over 20 years. Local control is happening, meaning the city of Newark will be in control of its own destiny in the public schools. Reason for optimism?
Well, I have a lot of reason for optimism, in part because, and I know there are a lot of narratives out there, because over the course of the last 8 years, the gains in graduation rates, in math achievement, in reading achievement, and frankly, the systems that support that, the ability to hire, recruit, and retain great teachers, how we compensate teachers, just the data systems, the technology, has led to very significant advances, outsized advances compared to other cities in the country. We have a foundation upon which to build. We have a board that is committed.
Board of Education.
Board of Education that is going to run this $1 billion a year enterprise. They are committed. They are trained. If we can assure that they keep their eye on the ball here, and the ball is very simply, this system does not exist for any other reason than to successfully educate children. It's not about contracts. It's not about jobs.
It's not about patronage.
It's not about patronage. It's not about scratching people's back for political favors. What school do I get to? What job does my cousin get? As long as they keep their eye on the ball, we will go to a really terrific place in this city.
Thank you, Chris Cerf. Well done.
Thank you. My pleasure.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
We're pleased to be joined by Sarah Kay, Director of Corporate Giving at Prudential Financial. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
You know, there are a group of people, I believe we have 9 experts, 9 people committed to urban education all across this state, this nation. Prudential Financial committed to urban education, particularly in Newark, because?
Well, Prudential's headquarters is here in Newark, New Jersey. We were founded over 140 years ago to really ensure that everybody has the opportunity to achieve financial security. And that opportunity begins with making sure that people have the right skill sets and that they're connected to quality jobs. And that begins with having a high quality education. And so for us, we strongly believe that a high quality education system is really important for a thriving city, of which we believe that Newark will become. It's also very important that it helps create pathways for economic mobility for underserved populations. For example, a high quality education could set them on the right pathway to get into a really good college or a really good career, whichever they choose to do, if they have the right fundamental basic skill sets that they learned in the K through 12 education. And it's inextricably tied to making sure that this nation has a skilled workforce. So at the core of it, we are a business and we want to make sure that we have the future workforce here in our headquarter cities of Newark, but also for these young residents to be able to go out wherever they want to go to in whatever location.
Sarah, let me ask you something. What do you think some of the most significant challenges that urban students face really are?
There are so many different challenges, like you mentioned, in terms of what urban students face. Here in Newark, people live in different neighborhoods where their income level is very different, in addition to the types of resources and support. So even though it's so important that within the school building that there's good teachers, good principals, good curriculum, good community resources like arts education and sports, but at the same time, so much of what impacts a student is also outside of the school building. So what's happening at home, if they have food on their table, if they have safe passageways to the school building, do they have a good support network, whether it be their friends or their teachers or peers? And so there's so many different types of challenges that urban communities face because oftentimes many students are in a one-family home or they don't have their parents at home. They don't have the support system to help them with their homework. I think in this day and age, especially in urban communities, we task our teachers and principals with a lot of responsibility of being the parent, the teacher, the friend, the supporter.
Is it different? Excuse me for interrupting. We're only a few miles away. We're taping in Newark, New Jersey. And I don't want to point out any other communities, but say it's Short Hills, a particularly wealthy suburban community. Do you think we ask more of principals, teachers, educational administrators, people who deal directly with urban students, whether it's Newark, Jersey City, Camden, et cetera? Do you think we ask more of them than we ask of others?
It's not that we personally ask more of them.
It's more expected.
It's not, and again, it's not the expectations, but the teachers and the principals, they actually do more than the teachers and the principals in some of the suburban areas, just simply because of the nature of the community of where these students are coming from.
The needs are greater.
The needs are so much greater. Like I said, especially if they have only one family member at home who's working a day job and a night job, they don't have that support system to help with their homework. I mean, even in my friends that live in suburban communities, and they're trying to make that decision as to whether or not to send their child to a public school or private school, I always tell them the biggest difference is the resources that are at home. That makes a difference. Every public school teacher does their best, whether they're in the urban education or in the suburban area, but then there's so much more that the child faces in terms of challenges that can be help addressed at the home. And if they just don't have that stable home environment or they just don't have the resources there, then there is that difference that teachers end up doing more.
Sarah, help us understand something. At Prudential Financial, there's also a foundation, very committed to the Prudential Foundation. Give me a couple of examples of exactly what Prudential is doing to help Newark school children in Newark schools.
I can give you a couple of different ways.
The ones that jump out, by the way, go on their website. We'll put it up to find out more. Go ahead.
Thank you for that pitch. We have a lot of investments that we've made financially. We support every superintendent that has come in to help run this school district. We've worked with the parents. For example, we support an organization, the Newark Trust for Education, that's really based on community members getting their input and really helping to understand what it means for the city to return local control. At the same time, we've made impact investments in creating cohesive communities, whether it be around charter school financing, Teachers Village. We were one of the leaders in that in providing financial investments. We invested over $65 million in that, but also really thought leadership in partnering with Ron Bates Group and then the architect. The developer. And just thinking about this concept of what does it mean to build this corridor where there are schools, there's teacher housing that's subsidized, and that there's retail space available. And so they don't necessarily feel like they are lacking in the resources and support. So we have a health clinic that's available there. We have a daycare center as well, too. And so it's really making sure that the teachers feel like they have the resources to be successful.
Do you think most Americans who do not live in urban areas understand the challenges that teachers as well as students and administrators in urban areas like Newark face? And does that matter?
I think there are differences of opinions. I think some people who may either have grown up in the urban area or have work experience or personal experience in urban areas are a little bit more familiar with the challenges. Sure. I would say broadly, though, probably people misunderstand the challenges that students face in urban communities.
Hey, why can't they get their test scores up?
Exactly. Or why can't they finish their homework? Or what's going on with the teachers?
My kid does.
Exactly. And it's really about...
I don't mean that because ours don't very often, but right?
Yes. And it's about the support systems that are really necessary for a student to be successful. And that support system is it's like a whole orchestra. You need every single player to be there, and it has to take everything from the teacher, the principal, the coaches if they're part of sports teams, the after-school communicators.
The corporate community.
The corporate community, public agencies, the city office, all of these individuals. That saying, it takes a village to raise a child, is even more true when you're in an urban community.
Well, listen, Sarah Kay, who's the Director of Corporate Giving at Prudential Financial, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the CAUCUS Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by New Jersey Resources, Seton Hall University, TD Bank, Hackensack Meridian Health, Verizon, the Turl Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, and by NJM Insurance Group. Promotional support provided by NJ Advance Media and by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association.
Perfectly orchestrated. In sync with your life. Hackensack Meridian Health is redefining how health and care come together. Because when everything works together, your world gets better. Hackensack Meridian Health, life years ahead.